feels like my water butt has filled up again in my absence. Hooray! These berries are so good. I can say a proper good morning to you now. Good morning. How are you all doing today? I hope you're well. Oh, it's a muggy day here today, which is why I'm going to do my next job. Yeah, it's thick, overcast clouds. Every now and again the sun tries to peep through. We may get some showers, I don't know. On the subject of watering, so it's been, I think, 3.5 weeks, possibly even a month, since I've watered the garden. I haven't touched it at all, and nor have my neighbours. They've kept an eye on things in the cold frame for me. There was some more lettuce starts in there, but the slugs have had the lot. Never mind. Doesn't matter. I'll sow again. So yeah, it hasn't had really thorough watering for about, I think, 4 weeks. We've had just enough rain to keep the garden alive. Just. I know other parts of the country you've had absolutely lashing rain, even other parts of London. I know Paul's had way more rain than me. But anyway, the garden has survived. Yay! I am, though, today, I'm going to give everything a really, really deep soaking. Just because, like I said, the rain that we've had has been so scant. Now, there's 2 reasons I'm talking about it. Just briefly, these gorgeous blueberry bushes, which honestly, I just sent a load to the ground. Oh, that one's got ants in. I don't want that. Get off me. Don't sting me. Yeah, these blueberries have been utterly gorgeous. I quite like it when, just before they're really, really, really ripe, when they still have a bit of tartness to them. And I've still got tons to harvest. I reckon it's going to be about the equivalent of, at least 10 of those punnets you buy in the shop for a couple of quid. Brilliant. The reason I'm mentioning the blueberries is, and you saw me getting water from my water butt over at the shed. I'm amazed it's actually filled back up. So there was me thinking we haven't had much rain, but obviously it's been enough to fill the water butt, which is great. And then my neighbour, the shed next to me, he's not really around much at the moment. And he did say that I can use his rainwater harvest from his butt, because I think it's going to pull his shed over if I don't. I've got access to rainwater. Brilliant. The reason I'm mentioning that is for the blueberries. They're an acid loving plant, so the compost that they're in is an acid, a slightly more acidic compost, which you will have no doubt heard of. It's called ericaceous compost. So it just raises the acidity. Hence they're in pots, because to do enough ericaceous compost in a whole bed, my goodness, that would cost a fortune. But to do it in the pots, it's doable. And they much prefer rainwater to tap water. I can't remember the ins and outs of the chemical compositions of both, but yeah, preferably rainwater. So in previous years, in drought years, I just don't harvest enough water to go through the whole season, like in 22 and 21, really bad drought years. I earmark my water butt water always, first and foremost, for the blueberry bushes, because it's filled up again, and because I've got my neighbours I can use the rainwater on other plants, and they much prefer it. There is nitrogen in rainwater, so which is why, you know, when you come to a garden after a really good rain shower, really good rain, somehow everything looks brighter and greener. It's because of that little bit of nutrient in the rainwater. I'm sorry, I'm just getting distracted because I'm just watching the magpies hopping around in the tomato bed. They're so funny, they're so clumsy. Right, now, speaking of tomatoes, that's my first job of the day. I think I'm going to do the watering at the very end, because it's possible we'll get a shower today, and if we get a shower, I'll let the clouds do the work instead. So let's go to the tomatoes and talk about why I want to talk about the tomatoes and watering and rain and all that stuff. Come on. Gosh, when the sun does come through, it's really quite warm. Now, excuse me, I found out who my tomato fairy godmother is. So obviously I thanked her profusely for looking after those tomatoes. They had gotten quite big. There are two that escaped her notice here. And we'd had a really quite severe windstorm. And she was really worried about them, that they were going to just be snapped, smashed, what have you. So she got on with tying them up, and she said, gosh, they're strong plants. They're really strong plants. Yay! And bless her, she also said, I'm really sorry if I haven't done it to your standard. I was like, oh my goodness, don't be silly. I'm just really, really super grateful that she did it. So, and she said, I can't believe you have 19 tomatoes. Normally I would have about 40. I said, actually I've got 21. There are 2 more behind the rose bush. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see it. Anyway, bless her. Yeah, she did me such a huge favour. But I'm going to go back over to them shortly after I've seen to these 2. There's just 2 in this bed. These were sort of spares. And I thought, yeah, just chuck them in. Because I want to prune them even harder. I think she sort of focused on tying them in and did remove some of the side shoots. But I can see that there are still some, and actually fairly big side shoots on them. Now, if this was earlier in the year, taking off the side shoots, like I've just done here, pop it in some compost, it'll root. Extra plant, great. I don't have room for any extra plants, and also it is a little bit late in the season now. We're right at the end of July for these to come to fruition. But if you had a greenhouse, then I'd say, yeah, absolutely, take your side shoot cuttings and, you know, pop them on and grow them on. Oh, just, it's always the way, isn't it? You take your side shoots off and then you look straight back at the plant and you realise you've missed 1, 2, 10. So that's one of the jobs today, is apart from just getting these 2 tied in, side shoots off, and I'll do that in the top bed as well, the main sort of tomato bed. But I'm also going to prune quite a bit of the foliage out, particularly the lower leaves. I've got that piece of string a bit short. It's where the tomato has grown sideways. There's quite a bit of resistance against the cane. That should do it. It's wonderful to see so many trusses on them though. Yes, so I'll be pruning out quite a bit of the foliage. Certainly the lower leaves. Now, I'll be doing it with the secateurs because they've all got a bit chunky and a bit thick and a bit strong. A bit too chunky and a bit too thick and a bit too strong for me to do just with my fingers. Oh, I've just noticed this is my first truss of flowers. Brilliant. So the lower foliage is going to come off completely up to the first truss, and then other foliage where it's really dense, I'll just cut, for example, I'll cut a leaf in half It needs some leaves, obviously, to photosynthesize, but I will be cutting quite a lot of the leafage, the foliage out today because of the weather. Okay, I know loads of you know what I'm going to talk about, but for those of you who are perhaps new to gardening this year, my mind is already turning towards the possibility of blight. It is a fungal, I think it's fungal. It's a fungal disease that affects plants. There's a different form of blight plants that affects tomatoes. There's a different type of blight which affects potatoes. We probably all know our history of the Irish potato famine. I think that was a weather and blight issue. I'm not sure. Oh, I should look that up. Anyway, back to the tomatoes. So yeah, it's a fungal disease. It rots the plant. It is spread by spores, which sort of land on the foliage and then they just get into the plant, wreck it. Now, the ideal conditions for blight are warm to hot days and damp conditions, i.e. all this kind of miserly, drizzly weather that we've been having and that we are forecast to have. I haven't had a blight warning yet because I think we actually have been a little bit on the cool side, so maybe that's why I've not had the warning yet. I'm sure it's to come. So, thinking about that thing of spores landing on the leaves, it being about that kind of damp, moist, warm atmosphere. The reason I prune foliage completely from the bottom and then going up the plant, sort of making choices, is what I'm trying to do is create less surface area for the spores to land on, is one thing. That's Rosie. I didn't see the cats yesterday when I first came back, but they've both been here today. Creating less surface area for the spores to land on, but, and this is more particular to the bed, the tomato bed at the top of the garden, where I've got quite a lot of plants in close proximity. What I'm trying to do is create plenty of air space around each plant. So if the plants are all getting really bushy and sort of overlapping and their foliage is on foliage, and it's just the idea that if we have a rain shower, if we get a bit of drizzle, if there's plenty of air circulation around each plant, hopefully the plant dries off more quickly and therefore is less susceptible to this horrible disease. I've done various things over the years with, various degrees of success. But what I found is that, inevitably, with outdoor tomatoes, unless it's a drought year, I end up with blight. I think probably in the last 10 years, I've had 4 blight years, 6 blight-free years. It's just, it's particularly a thing for, let's get on with this next one, I'll be here all day. It's particularly a problem for your outdoor grown tomatoes, just because we have far less control over the environment. In other words, they get wet. Crikey, these did get going. This is, I don't know how much you can see, but I would say there's a good couple of feet of growth in the last 3.5 weeks or so. Oh, and another little truss there that's actually, that's fruiting. They've all got plenty of trusses on, so this one that I've just done, the lower truss is fruiting, the second one up is fruiting, and then there's 2 more trusses coming. Oh, sorry, I should probably also say these are what are known as indeterminate variety or cordon. In other words, a bush type variety is also known as determinate because it grows to a determined size, whereas these grow to an indeterminate size. They'll just keep growing and growing and growing and growing. So with the indeterminate, which is what I'm doing, I removed the side trusses. I don't want the energy going into those side trusses, as in foliage trusses. I want all the energy to go into the fruit trusses. Some people are, oh, well, that leaf is pruned. Some people are really particular, some are less so. I'm quite particular, but I think that's also, frankly, it's partly because I just love doing my tomato cares. It is very much it's a relaxing job, it's a sit-down job, but it's one of those, it's just a real summer job, isn't it? And actually, apart from, I mean, I've got some weeding and watering to do, but we get into this time of year where there's not a lot to do in the garden really now, apart from, watering, weeding and harvesting. So it's really nice to have this time with the tomatoes, doing a bit of good old-fashioned plant care. Yay! Right, it's going to take me a little while to go through them all, so I would suggest go and get yourself a cup of tea while I'm doing it all, and we'll reconvene. Oopla! We'll reconvene for the next job. Oh, sorry, I should have said as well, with the lower leaves, so as I go up the plant, I might just chop out half a leaf. They've been a bit smashed in the mud on the floor because they've been lying on the floor. Let's have it off completely. So the lower leaves I take off completely, just because I'm seeing more that I want to do as I'm sitting talking to you. Yeah, just because then with either rain or with watering, if any of that sort of wet mud splashes up and back at the leaves, I don't want it splashing on my plants. It's all about that sort of plant hygiene at this stage of the game. Yay! 1, 2, 3, 4 trusses on this one as well. And in years when we've not had rain, in our drought years, there was one year I was harvesting the last of my outdoor tomatoes at the beginning of November. It was, kind of crazy. Alright, lovelies, off you all pop for your cup of tea, and we'll come back in a minute and get on with the next job. Look how chilled our Rosie is. Oh, I'm happy to be back, Rosie. Are you happy I'm back, sweetie? I think so. Just lie there while I do all the work. Whew, getting there. Nearly done. Oh my goodness, there's black cloud right overhead. So I think I'm getting done just in time. Now it occurred to me and I thought, oh, actually let's have a little chat about this, because I was thinking it in my head for myself, and I thought, well, it might be the sort of a useful thing to share. I was thinking about this whole thing of when we come back to our gardens after a bit of an absence. I had I think, was it 2019? Yeah, I think it must have been before COVID. I went down to Auntie Teapot's and I was there for a prolonged stay, and I came back to the garden. I couldn't believe it. It's just a jungle. It's fantastic. So that is what I was thinking about, this thing of, if you've been on holiday, or you've been poorly yourself, or perhaps you've been looking after someone, and it's, this sort of time of year, July, August, especially if it's a time when we're having warmth and rain, it really makes the gardens go bonkers. You might sort of come back to your garden, it might look like a jungle, size of the side shoots. and you think, crikey, I just don't know where to start. Because it can be really overwhelming, can't it? And honestly, I'm looking at my garden, most of it's behind you, and I think, oh, it's a mess. It's a mess. You know, the paths are scruffy. They need trimming, they need trimming. There are weeds in the mud paths, there are some weeds in the beds even. That's a no-no. Some of the lettucey type things, some of them have bolted, they're going to seed. I mean, everywhere I look, I can see jobs. I've got, it's behind me in this bed, I've got bits of litter everywhere, plastic food trays, gloves, shoes from the foxes, so I need to go around with a litter bag, and pick all those up. So yeah, I get it if you come back from your holes and you feel a bit overwhelmed, and also you might even feel a little bit disheartened because you've had a pristine plot before you went away, and then you come back and it's like, oh my goodness, weeds everywhere, what have you. But you know what I'm just trying to say, don't try not to be disheartened. I'm not telling you how to feel, but try not to be disheartened. When you have that initial shock of have that initial shock, let it settle down, and then look at what's growing. Don't look at the weeds for now. Look at your veggies and your fruit bushes and see what's growing. And oh, look, there's a courgette that's arrived. And oh, the first cucumber. Oh, the first trusses of tomatoes. The fruits have set. Have that moment for yourself to acknowledge what's growing and the joy of that. But then, you know, let's get down to the nitty-gritty of the work. How on earth to prioritise when so much needs doing? And all I can tell you is what I do, and it seems to work for me. It seems to help my head not explode with thinking about it all. It's very simple. It's the priority is always the plants, the veg plants. And we kind of come down in order, and we sort of get to sort of weeding, trimming and trimming my grass paths, doing my edges, and doing all the other tidying stuff. They're really low on the list, because ultimately, you know, it's the veggies I want to look after and want to ensure success with. Is that rain? Oh, we have to go in the shed. So we're prioritising plants, but we've got a whole garden full of plants. Which ones do we prioritise? So I would say, especially, that goes, say hello to everyone.
Hello everyone.
That's our Gary.
Nice to see you out in the plots.
In the rain.
In the rain, I brought it with me.
On my blight defence system.
What this is?
Yeah.
What, you sitting there?
Yeah, I'm getting rid of my foliage.
Oh, that's the way I put it.
Fight the blight. I'll pop down in a minute, lovely.
Okay, lovely. Take care.
He's got some seedlings for me. So prioritising the plants, but which ones? So, because we've been having quite stormy weather, for me, I'm thinking which plants need support, which ones have got structure. So, it's obvious, the tomatoes, they need attention, they need tying in, they need this foliage to come out because of the weather and the whole blight thing. The climbing beans, are the frames okay? Do I need to shore up the frames? Are the things which need to be tied in? We might have to go in this shed, I can't believe it. Oh, and it's only spitting. So yeah, that's how I'll start. I start from, almost like starting from the tallest and working down, because the things on the ground, you know, the things that don't have support, don't have structure, they're going to be okay in terms of stormy weather and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to have a little look around, you know, are there things I need to harvest? Are there plants I need to train? So my cucumbers are going mad. We'll get to them, maybe not today, but so I need to just, you know, help them, ease them the way I want them to go. So that's what I'm going to do in the next sort of couple of days, is prioritise all my vegetable plants. And once I'm happy that everything is once again tied in, trimmed, trained, whatever it needs to be, then I can start to focus on the other stuff. And my priority will be weeds, because I don't want the weeds to flower and then go to seed and spray their seed everywhere. So I can just see things the weeds coming to flower. So that will be a priority. I want them out before then. And then once that's done, and the paths are trimmed and trimmed, I'm kind of back to that, I'm all sorted again. And then I can get back to that sort of simple maintenance routine, which will be, you know, as the tomatoes grow, tie them in once a week or so. But it will be mostly then about weeding, watering and harvesting. So yeah, if, like I said, if you've just come back to your garden after a bit of time away, yes, I accept that it might, Mr. Shoot. I completely accept that it can feel a bit daunting if you've come back to a jungle. But just sort of, you know, take your time, prioritise your plants. The weeds, the grass, paths, the edges, all of that, they do my head in. However, I'm always able to push them to the back of my mind, because I know that actually the plants are the important things, aren't they? So anyway, yes, there we go. The other thing about getting this foliage out from the bottom of the tomatoes in these top beds, we'll do a tour soon so you can see everything properly. But I'm going to cut my grass first. I can't do a tour with my paths looking like this. It wouldn't be Vivi's garden. But yeah, under the tomatoes, remember I planted the rock and court beans. They've come up, they're lovely, they're about 25-30 centimetres tall. So of course I want the foliage off the bottom of my tomatoes to give them space and light too. Gary has some Cavallo Nero seedlings for me, and what I'm thinking is, because they are, if you don't know Cavallo Nero, it's a type of kale. I love it. It's one of my favourite winter greens. I didn't start any this year because I just didn't know what I was going to be doing with the garden and moving and all that. The great thing about Cavallo Nero is if you've got a small garden, even like, you know, a little patio garden, it's one of those brassicas that you can do in a small space, because unlike, you know, all our big cabbages and cauliflowers and, you know, our big Taunton Dean kales and all the rest of it, they actually have quite a tall, slim sort of growing habit. They are a cut and come again veg, so you just take a couple of leaves at a time and it carries on growing, goes right through the winter. Normally it's okay with a bit of frost. If it gets a frost at night and then in the day it warms up, they're okay. Last year I lost most of mine because we didn't get above freezing even in the daytime for 10 days. It's too much for them. But yeah, he's got some for me, and I'm thinking that this, I wonder if I can swing you round a bit whilst I'm talking. I don't know if this will work. Let's see. I don't know if can I see what you're seeing? Okay, yeah. So this calendula bed in front, can you see up towards that end? That's the one that that was the commercial seed. I mean, really poor germination, rubbish. My bed is the one behind with my saved seed. That's fully germinated, brilliant. So because there's so many gaps in this little calendula bed, I can put the Cavallo Nero in there. Brilliant, because the Cavallo is going to go up. The calendula will happily, the ones that are there, will happily sit underneath. And a proper little potager type garden. But there was me saying I'm not going to prioritise weeding over the plants. There are some weeds in that bed, so I will weed that bed before I put the seedlings in. But yeah, first of all, I'm going to go and pop down to Gary's plot, and I don't know if I'm going to get the seedlings today. They're actually in his seed bed, so probably what I'll do is just check where they are, see which ones I can have. He said there's loads, so I'll go and do that in a second, make my selection, and here comes the sunshine again. And then let's put you back there. I'm at a really weird angle. Up a bit, left a bit. Golden shot. Oh my gosh, that's going back a bit, isn't it? Golden shot. We never watched that on telly at home because it was on ITV and we weren't allowed to watch ITV. Was it ITV? But occasionally we might be at a friend's house for tea and it was on. Anyway, going right off subject. I'm going to leave it there with you all for today. Finish off this little row of tomatoes. I've got some other bits and bobs of jobs to do, which I won't do on camera. Frankly, they're boring. And yeah, go and see our Gary and check out these seedlings he's got for me. So for now, I'm just going to say to you, happy pruning your tomatoes. Your tomatoes are probably way bigger than mine already, aren't they? Because you'll have all started way before me. Whatever stage you're at with your tomatoes, I hope you're happy with them and I hope they're where you expect them to be at. I think the majority of us now should have our first fruits set. I know I've actually had pictures from friends. I've had 3 pictures in the last week from friends in North America and Canada showing me their ripening tomatoes, their first red ones. I'm weeks away. Oh, well, you know, it doesn't matter when they come, just as long as they come. All right, lovelies. What are we doing next? Can't remember. I'll see you again really soon, I hope. But in the meantime, please look after yourselves. Look after each other. Look after your tomato plants. Cheerio.